Here is everything you need to know going into double game week 36. Okay, so as we do with every one of these videos, we've got the top players for expected points by position, according to my friends at DraftHound. If you want to see these statistics yourself week on week in FPL, you can sign up to DraftHound below for free on the link in the description. So getting right into it, top of the tree for goalkeepers in game week 36 is Nick Pope, followed by Steele. I think given Brighton's performance, or at least in the first half anyway, against Everton, remains to be seen if Steele is going to remain their first choice goalkeeper. And I'd also suggest Arsenal and Newcastle, both away from home. They're tough fixtures for Steele. So I'm in agreement with DraftHound here that Pope comes out on top with Leeds and Brighton as his fixtures. Kepa, Johnson, Edison, De Gea, Raya, and you can see the rest of the goalkeepers there. Top defender, no surprise really. I think he's still the top scoring defender in the entire game, despite blanking for like 5 or 6 game weeks in a row. Kieran Trippier tops the list, over 2 more expected points than any other defender on the list. And then it's no surprise that the list is dominated by Newcastle and Brighton players. Trent, Stones, Dalot and Chilwell in there as well. Midfielders and forwards up next, and the top predicted points this week goes to Alexander Isak of Newcastle. With his double game week against Leeds and Brighton, I could well see him scoring in both of those games, and that's exactly what DraftHound is saying too. A very close second, but Isak is preferred, is Callum Wilson, followed by, no surprise, Erling Haaland. A couple of Brighton strikers. What we don't know yet is exactly how Brighton are going to line up. De Zerbi's been rotating that team quite a lot, so DraftHound, I think, assuming that a number of these players are going to start, I think, well, fairly, they're also including them because they've been starting for them recently, so the likes of Enciso and Undav are making these statistics. Alvarez, Kane, Watkins, Jesus, Tony and Vardy round out the forwards. Top of the tree for midfielders, although, again, not exactly sure if he'll start. He's been on the bench for, I think, 5 or 6 games in a row now, Almiron, since returning from his injury. We'll see if he does actually start against Leeds and Brighton, but he tops the list, assuming he does start and plays 90 minutes. He tops the list from midfielders, followed by Mitoma, Joe Linton, McAllister, March, Willock, Salah, Bruno Guimaraes, Kevin De Bruyne, Rashford, and Riyad Mahrez. You've got your goal scoring odds up next. Now, despite their double game weeks, this just shows the power of Erling Haaland. And to be honest, I think the predicted points are different for the Newcastle players purely because they're going to get 2 points for appearing. But it actually looks like Haaland's winning the way in terms of goal involvement and goal scoring odds. He's 71% likely to score against Everton away, according to DraftHound, and 78% chance of either scoring or getting an assist at a goal involvement, essentially. Wilson and Isak are second and third, respectively. Alvarez is in there. I take that with a pinch of salt. Is he going to play? That's a question you've got to ask yourself. Similarly with Enciso and Undav, Kane, Jesus, Watkins, Tony, Vardy are top of the tree for goal involvement and goal scoring odds beyond the players I've just said. Now then, clean sheet odds, and it's an interesting picture with the double game week, obviously, for Brighton and Newcastle. I imagine a lot of you, well, looking at live FPL anyway, it suggests that I think Brighton's top 10k ownership in defence is about 106%. So that means the average player, active FPL manager, owns over 1 Brighton defenders. And looking at their clean sheet odds for this game week, it's looking a bit bleak. I know they got 2 fixtures, obviously double, the games they could get a clean sheet in, but 17% against Arsenal, 22% Newcastle. They conceded a number of goals against Everton just gone. I mean, we'll see how they get on in that game. Chelsea, interestingly, top the list for clean sheets. And I put Ben Chilwell in the picture because, I don't know about you, I brought him in on my wild card back along. Chelsea have obviously been terrible, but I've just not had a reason to get rid of him. So he's sitting there in my team, unfortunately with a yellow flag at the moment. But I think looking at these stats, it gives me probably 1 more week with Kepa in goal before I flog him. Man City, are they ever going to keep a clean sheet in the Premier League with Edison in goal? Who knows on that one. Man United, Crystal Palace, Brentford, Newcastle, they look pretty good. 36 and 30 in both of their fixtures, followed by Liverpool and Arsenal. Usually when a team is below sort of 30% clean sheet odds, I never really like to suggest they can keep one, really. I think, anything over 30% of that lot, they've got some really tough fixtures, and I'd probably be avoiding their defenders if I could. All right, we're going to get onto some players to buy in a second, but looking at the fixtures, I think is really important because the transfers we've got 3 weeks left in FPL, right? The transfers you have to use now are extra important, more important than they've ever been at any point in the season because realistically, we've only got 3 free transfers left for the end of the season, unless, of course, you've got a chit left. Game week 36 brings with it a double for Brighton and Newcastle, as we all know. 37 is also a double for Brighton, Chelsea, Man City and Man United. The Brighton double isn't amazing. Southampton, very good fixture, but Man City, it may not even count as a fixture for a double. I know Brighton could challenge them, but I mean, we only really see that game going one way. Chelsea's double in 37 is terrible. I mean, it's a double, but they've got Man City and Man United. I just don't like that at all. Then Man City and Man United, obviously talking about Chelsea, they both play Chelsea in this double. I think that's a nice double for both of these teams. Chelsea and Brighton, 2 fixtures for Man City. I think they could win and score goals in. And then Bournemouth and Chelsea for Man United. Another couple of fixtures I could see them scoring goals in. For me, it absolutely makes sense to target the teams with double game weeks and also the teams with something left to play for. I feel like the likes of Brighton, Liverpool, Man United, Newcastle, obviously Man City still playing for the title, Arsenal still fighting. Realistically, this stage of the season, you want to be picking teams with, who are playing well, but also playing for something. I think we're not going to see teams just literally on the beach or anything, but I think we're going to see the form of some teams drop off, the likes of Palace, etc. Knowing that they're safe, they don't really have a lot to play for. So does that mean maybe we can start forgetting about their assets and concentrate on players with something left to play for? And speaking of players with something left to play for, my top transfer target for game week 36 is Isak. I don't think he needs any introduction based on all I've gone through in terms of expected points. He's the top player for expected points in game week 36. Obviously, the Newcastle striker double up creates potentially some minutes issues for both players. I feel that Isak has a better injury record than Callum Wilson, which in my opinion makes him the safer pick. We'll see who takes the penalties when both of them are on the pitch. That might be a deciding factor. A lot of people on Twitter yesterday when they played Arsenal was suggesting Callum Wilson was going to take the penalty. So yeah, we'll see who takes the pens, but I feel minutes is probably a safer thing to bank on, and injury record as well. It's quite likely, I would suggest, that Wilson either doesn't play the full 90s in the double or he actually comes away with an injury. He is literally that injury prone. As for Isak, he's slightly cheaper, and his underlying numbers, they're the third best for all the forwards in the Premier League at the moment. 0.78 expected returns per 90. He's right up there with the likes of Harry Kane and Mo Salah. Now, I felt like a bit of a mug making a buy and avoid video and putting David De Gea in it, and then he instantly went on to make a mistake against West Ham. But I'm sticking to my guns here because I think with the games he's got left for the end of the season, he is a good option. Wolves away from home are certainly not as good as they are at home, and I feel like they do struggle to score goals at times. And Man United, I know they've conceded in the last couple of games, but they've almost been through like individual errors, and I know obviously it's still conceding goals and individual errors are bad, but as a collective, as a team, I feel like they've been defending well and genuinely one of the best defences in the league just on visuals. I know, like I said, they've been making mistakes. De Gea, he seems to always recover well when he makes his mistakes, as he did against, and to be honest, I think the mistake he made against West Ham is being over-egged more than it was as well. It wasn't an absolute howler. I wouldn't suggest that for a second. I think if any of us were put in that goal and the shot was made with players blocking your view, you'd be in the same position as De Gea was. Obviously, he's a professional footballer, so that's not really a comparison, but you get my point. Comparing, if you think you've got 3 good goalkeepers, I would suggest for the end of the season. You've got De Gea, Pope, and Ederson, right? Ederson, I'm going to mention him next. He doesn't make any saves and he doesn't get clean sheets. Nick Pope, he's a great option. He makes saves and gets clean sheets, but in my opinion, you want to go for probably Kieran Trippier and then the other Newcastle forwards, a double up on Wilson and Isak if you can, which leaves space, in my opinion at least, for David De Gea. I think he's the best of both worlds. He's got a good chance of clean sheets in his next 4 games and saves bonus as well. He's averaging double the saves of Ederson and he's got more clean sheets than Nick Pope. For that reason, I'm going to stick to my guns and I'll die on the sword of David De Gea being a good pick for the end of the season. No surprise, my final player, and it's one that I'm going to sell. Well, I'm not going to sell because I don't have him, but I would recommend selling. It's going to be difficult to do so, albeit Everton away from home, Man City got good clean sheet odds, but you look at the track record of Ederson and it's been horrendous. He doesn't make saves, he doesn't keep clean sheets, which means he doesn't score any points. 5.4 million, you're paying that sort of money for the likes of March and Matoma. Well, I was going to say they're scoring points. They're not scoring points at the moment, but you get my point, right? It's a lot of money to be spending on a player that's not returning in a position where there's only one of. And I feel like goalkeepers can be quite valuable in FPL. If you get a goalkeeper that makes regular clean sheets and a lot of saves, it's an absolute goldmine for points. And Ederson is not doing any of that. So Maybe you want to replace him with De Gea, understandable. Maybe Nick Pope, that's also a good option. Steele, I'd be a little bit put off by, just for, you know, the fact Brighton have conceded a few goals to Everton. I feel like De Zerbi could rotate the goalkeepers around and put Sanchez back in. Who knows? I feel like that's why I've said De Gea is the best. I think he's the best of both worlds in terms of saves and clean sheets, and you should be looking to sell Ederson for him. All right, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you did, please leave me a like rating and comment below what you think of the players I've picked, and also who you're going to captain in the game week. I want to know how many people are actually going to favour the double game week players or just go with the tried and tested Erling Haaland. I'll see you in the next video.